glad that you do. I get the sense that you feel moved. Are you moved?
No, that's actually very cool.
Yeah,
I'm actually very glad to know that he had a huge part in setting up everything.
Yeah, that's good. No, he did. He didn't do, like, he wasn't like his own department. You know, the whole. Does everyone know this image? This like.
The Black Power salute or whatever.
Yeah. So the idea of this is that it's a lot of people together makes strength happen instead of a lot of people apart, which is just like a weak little fish or whatever. Which I like to say because my great grandpa taught me when I was very little. He asked me to shake his hand. I was like, why? And I shook his hand like this. And he goes, are you a fish or a man? And I go, I'm a man. He says, well, then shake my hand like a man. So now I squeeze hand when I shake. But anyway, that's very good, and I'm glad that you have that reflection. I just want to probe though. Are there any thoughts that or feelings that are coming up because Martin Luther King is a cherished character, is a cherished person. You know what I mean? And sometimes people don't react well to this presentation because it to them challenges or reduces his role or suggests to. And I'm just curious if any of that.
I remember the first time I saw you do this to talk about him. That was a very short, but an initial reaction was like, "Hey, this kind of like diminishes Martin Luther King a little bit." And then I realized that it doesn't really. We just like to think of him as this saintly, heroic, superhero or something. So,
yeah.
How you doing, by the way?
I'm good. Thanks for checking in. I do this when I'm thinking hard.
I really appreciate you highlighting Bayard because it's something that my mom taught me about Bayard like a long time ago.
Awesome.
And so, he doesn't get highlighted often. But I was wondering, do you think he chose to be low-key, or was his role like that? Because he
did not choose to be low-key. In fact, he was so out that it doesn't exist to be out that much today. Because it was 1960, and he was out. So his grandmother was a Quaker, and I think she was either half white or white, and they taught him nonviolent resistance. They taught him all these things. So he just grew up feeling like who he was, but also people like W.E.B. Du Bois would be in and out of his house, talking to his parents. You know what I mean? So he's really around prominent civil rights people as a little kid. So he just grows up prolific. He just grows up with all the information, and he doesn't have any reason to think of himself as wrong. So what he understands is that, we have a society that thinks things that are okay and natural are wrong. People's skin color, stuff like that he learned. Not only is it wrong, but we can do something about it. So no, he did not choose to be low-key. What happened was, and I'm so glad you asked this question, what happened was he got, just fast forward to it's 1963, and he's got this march about to happen. The president's afraid about this. He doesn't want this to happen. He wants it to go his way, right? Which means it's not going to happen. So 10 years ago, 1953, was the first time that Bayard Rustin's sexuality became a thing because he was being followed by the government. Our government was following him around because he was going around making things happen. And they found him one day. Magically, what happens when you're followed around by the government? They might find you in a car having sex with you guys, I don't know. So that happened, and then it became news, and it became, for those who wanted to take him down, fodder to take him down. You understand me? And that became a threat to Martin Luther King because he literally boiled down to a phone call. So we're gonna tell people that Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin are boning if you guys don't not do this march. So bye. And so they didn't do the march. A. Philip Randolph folded, but Bayard Rustin was like, fuck that, we're doing it anyway. And so then they did the march. Yeah, but in order for our movement to succeed, unfortunately, he had to be the adult and say, I can't be this, I have to. But he kept on leading it in secret, like on the DL, but he couldn't take the credit. We had to get somebody who people thought was more of a model citizen, and that guy has to be straight. Any?
I think it's really interesting that you bring up the point about how people feel somewhat offended that you remove this or almost that because talking about somebody like helping and kind of like leading in the background for Dr. Martin Luther King, and like how some people can feel like how you felt. It's like, whoa there. Like it feels almost like personally offensive, and I think it's funny how like this isn't just like I feel like there's so many situations where someone's like a figurehead or like idolized, and then you don't think about all the other people that are a part of the movement or all the other people that have like helped, because one person can't come up with all that knowledge. Do you know, like?
Yeah,
So
it's true.
I think it's really interesting, like that psychological process of like once someone becomes idolized, you almost like tune out everybody else that was a part of it.
So you're the hegemony group. Yeah, that's another hegemonic issue, because one of those ideas that we hegemonically are receiving every day is to be the one, to be the biggest, the best, the first, and it's just you, and it's all you. I take it for myself. It's not like European ideals of masculinity where you understand that you're a part of like a group of a bunch of other species, like a.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of like TV shows and movies, because people don't realize like how many collaborators like went into like making that, and it's really like only one name, like Quentin Tarantino, except there's so many people that like helped make that.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, all the drama that nobody knows about, all that. Yeah. Any more? Yes.
How did you, what got you so interested in Bayard? Like, what was like that moment where you're like, I have to go out and spread this message about him?
My dad is a church, okay, I was born into a church, and I'm no longer part of it, but I was born into it, so I didn't have like an experience like the rest of my friends where I understood like savvy stuff, like jokes and like references that are sexual or stuff like that, because we were so sheltered from it. What ended up happening was I felt attacked about how I talk, how I look, and how I dress. All sorts of things that I didn't understand were making me different than other people. And so my parents had to explain it to me. And my dad uses the Bible a lot, and he's got all these, followers and everything. So I felt like, well, why don't you give me an answer for this? And he couldn't. And one day, when I looked at, this isn't something that I grew up with. I knew him when I was a few years ago or whatever, from a, what was it? It was a book I was reading, and it mentioned him, and I was like, what? He's gay? Go back. No. And I got obsessed because I was a real person who's gay, and he's black, and he's a history figure, and what? Somebody to actually feel proud about that's not fictional, So I just got obsessed with it, and I realized nobody knew who it was, including adults who were teaching, me about how to go to church and stuff. I was like, well, why aren't you teaching me about this? So it sort of became something that I just felt was wrong for people to not know, because I felt like that was the answer for all that weird stuff I was getting that I didn't understand from people, like, why are you different? What's wrong with you, or whatever. So I saw elbows or something.
So now I got a question. What made him go to India? Was he just trying to leave America, or?
No, he actually was in a group called CORE. And it was sort of this organization that took him a civil rights organization. He went around the world to speak and call out racial inequality things, just broad about anything. But that was him getting paid with this organization to go around the world and do that. And so Ghandi invited him and said, come over here, we like what you're doing. And learn, because at the time, oh great, I'm glad you asked this question too. India was getting their independence from the British at the time. And, all those images of Gandhi, and he's and they have all the water in the street and stuff. That's him not fighting back when they're fighting him. And all those images in the civil rights, when you see those very well dapper dressed, black college students, and they're at the bar, at the cafe, and they're just trying to get a milkshake, and everyone's spitting on them and throwing stuff at them. Those images? Mm-hmm. That's Bayard Rustin's mastermind behind the civil rights movement. And those images, you remember them because they got to you because somebody did it right. Sorry, I got excited.
So he engineered those images, those photo ops.
Yeah, he actually did more than just engineer the photo ops. He also used his connections to people in the North who were radical and things to literally fund many of Dr. King's speeches and big things that get attention that cost money, you guys. Like, it costs organization. Somebody has to do it. So Rustin is somebody who just goes around impressing and freaking people out with his like knowledge, because he was very well read in not only our African American history, but antiquity and, you know, all of the pre-Elizabethan England and all of that stuff, which gives him solutions to governmental issues like nobody else has. So it's like you can walk into any room with that. That's like, you know what I mean? Nobody's gonna look at how gay you are. More, yes?
What exactly did he do after like Martin Luther was killed?
Well, he didn't stop doing civil rights movement stuff. He was getting older, you know, because when he was doing this stuff with Martin Luther King, he was already 40s, right? He sort of got really into government, sort of like behind the desk work, and made a point, and there were lots of discussions about not using his body anymore to protest, because he was a big advocate of that. Like, if you really want to make a difference, use your body, get out there, stand in the way of something, be an agitator. He sort of stopped doing that way and stopped being at physical demonstrations and things, and sort of went more into the like government jobs that we see Mitch McConnell and people doing today, where they're like the ones on TV, but they have a suit on, and it's like more about policy and politics. So he sort of went into that, like fell into that, but like he was still really, you know, active about the LGBT movement.
Have you ever thought about becoming a professor?
Yeah,